also they, along with B29s and a number of different organizations and businesses in the area, are and have been since last week putting together a fundraiser that is aiming to, one, provide people in the community a place to come together, have a great time, but at the same time raise some real meaningful dollars for family members that have been affected by the shooting of course, the deputies that lost their lives and others that last week were seriously injured, also shot in that shootout that took place. And so, of course, there are a number of different organizations that clearly have been doing that for sort of immediate relief. What Vineyard Market, and they'll talk to us in some more detail on this, they're looking to do more of an event that takes more planning, obviously. And so that is something that they are working on and will continue to work on. And then that is going to be coming up towards the end of the month. So we have several weeks away, but wanted to get you in the loop on it. And then if there's any ways that you might be able to help out as well, if you want to, whether as an individual or a business, then that information will be coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. And like I said, we're going to have our happy hour there coming up on this Friday, 4 to 6. And I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like, but I don't know if we're going to quite be patio weather yet. Have you looked that far out?
No, but I can.
Okay, yeah, just curious.
I'll look it up for you.
Just curious. I think we're supposed to hit 70 some this week. Rain, obviously, off and on, a potential throughout the week, and we'll have a look at that first alert forecast coming up. Just out of the gate, and some of you may know this, but those that don't, what has been executed regarding Iran, it is not illegal. I know this may come as a shock to you, but Democrats in their messaging are not being honest. And one of the red flags that you can oftentimes find when we're dealing with someone or an entity, political party that's just straight up lying is that they'll use one or two words as the entire substance of their argument. Usually it's in a name. If you try to have discussions about crime, if you try to have discussions about government programs, their argument back is you're racist. If you try to have discussions about the level of appropriateness or inappropriateness of having pornography in elementary schools, their argument is you're transphobic. If you want to talk about border security issues and what problems come about in realistic terms by having an insecure border and the benefits of securing your border, you are called racist. And so when it comes to the action that's been unfolding over the weekend in Iran with an increasing number of allies and partners, they are just using the term illegal. It is not illegal. It is also not unconstitutional. And there is something that's occurring that I've picked up on that has not really occurred to any sort of serious degree when military action that is, quote, controversial is taken. And that is a real, true discussion about what exactly declaring war means, as in the Constitution and the, Congress. It's Congress who declares war, so this is illegal. And I don't know how prevalent the conversation is going to be. I highly doubt in mainstream media it will be there, but I know I mentioned this. I was emceeing the Lincoln Days event in Christian County. And I'm just an MC for that event. I'm not one that has the benefit of speaking, but I did give everyone there a heads up. Listen, we're going to be talking about this on Monday, and we're going to talk about this whole argument that this is illegal because Congress declares war. Congress declares war. And that the way that is discussed is totally and completely inaccurate in terms of what it is that we all sort of rest upon the idea of what declare means. And it was, I think it was the next day or maybe even afterwards. I was on the way home and I was listening to Fox News, and Mark Levin was talking about this very same point, which doesn't surprise me because he's a constitutional guy. I think that this could be very valuable because, let's be honest, I think a lot of people that are even conservative Trump supporters, probably don't really truly understand the origins of the Congress is the entity, the branch that declares war, and exactly what that means. Because, and I'll just tell you, we're going to get into this during the program. The founders very specifically, very deliberately made sure that Congress did not have the authority to authorize or to declare, not declare, but to start wars, to, quote, make wars. They very deliberately, in their debates and discussions, made sure that the ability to successfully conduct war was in two separate branches. One branch, the ability to fund, while the other branch was the branch that would decide we're going to do it, we're going to move forward, and here's how we're going to do it. And the idea that one branch, being Congress, would have the ability to both raise dollars for it and fund it and be responsible for making the war was a very, very dangerous idea. And the irony is, so many people that are running around talking about how dangerous it is for Trump to have this authority. The founders deliberately intended for the president to have the authority, not Congress, because they believed it would be too dangerous for Congress to have that authority while also having the authority to fund it, because that would put all of the power to make war in one branch of the government. This entire discussion that is oftentimes had, even by people that present themselves as conservative oftentimes, is so off the mark in terms of what the Constitution says. Congress is an ultimate authority in this. If Congress doesn't like it, while you have some members of Congress, a couple Republicans as well as Democrats, running around talking about, well, we're going to come up with a resolution to just stop this. You have the funding. This is your play in it. You don't like it, you cut off the funding. That's your part of it. If you want to talk about visualize the two keys for a nuclear launch, that is your key. You have that power. And if you can get enough members of Congress to say that this is not a military engagement that the United States should be involved in, then you get enough votes to say the funding absolutely stops. There is no money for it. That's what you do. All right, so we're going to get into this, and a lot of, if you can just remove the political component to this, the joy of people learning that the doorway to freedom has been open for them. Some of the visuals, people, it's an amazing thing. I hate that this gets lost on people because of all the political talk and the hatred for Donald Trump that you have in the streets all across the world. Thousands of people gathering together from Germany to the UK to the United States of America, just all over the world, with Israeli flags and Iranian flags together, celebrating. There's a number of visuals, but I'm just observing one visual, and like in the video of people dancing and hugging and cheering are American flags, Iranian flags, and Israeli flags all together. The profound alteration to the divisions in this world, and I know a lot of people are going to hate to hear this, but this is complete 100% Donald Trump has made that happen. 100%. these people embracing one another. I mean, you've got the people of Iran, which have been under the authority of this Islamic terrorist regime for 57 years, living in a country whose number one priority openly has been to destroy Israel. And to see, if you did not know any better, these countries they're no better allies than Israel and Iran, if you're just to look at the actual people celebrating with one another. This is something that no one believed to ever be imaginable. And yet it is occurring. Doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean that there aren't going to be components to it, like lost lives, that are, to be celebrated. That's wonderful. But just the fact that this is occurring, historic does not really even begin to cover it. It's a pretty amazing thing. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447-KSGF. Oh, and I want to say one other thing, and I know just kind of peppering with little chapters of this book that we're going to be talking about. Just because you disagree with something does not mean that it is illegal. And just because something's not illegal does not mean that you have to agree with it. There seems to be this default where if you just, for whatever reason, you don't believe that this is in the best interest of the United States, this is something we should not be doing, that the default is, well, that it's illegal. No. Just because you don't, and just because it is a legal action, that doesn't mean that you have to approve of it either. We've got to get away from this extreme 0 to 60 boom like that. There's no, it's, if I don't like it, that means it's impeachable. If I don't like it, it means it's a war crime. If I don't like it, it means it's a violation of the Constitution. It's illegal. You can dislike and disapprove of something as an American and as a human being with a brain without it being illegal. You don't have to have that in your corner. Let's get that weather, shall we?
Sure. The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 55. Tonight, isolated showers throughout the night, otherwise mostly cloudy with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers before noon and then partly sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Wednesday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 70.
All right, let's just get that out of the way there. trying to figure out. I don't know that there's a natural order on which aspects of this to discuss. So the latest, let me see. See, I already got things out of order here. That okay, here we go. Now, some of the latest, and there was the announcement, a number, I think 3 or perhaps more troops, U.S. troops, losing their lives, and Trump, of course, and he's not been wearing rose-colored glasses on this. When he announced this launch, he said, listen, we're probably going to lose some lives in this, and this isn't going to be the sort of thing that is done in a couple of hours. He's been very realistic. And we will continue to see that sort of thing. Of course, there have been reports, and some of these are just total red flags. I saw some people on social media sharing a report, I believe it was ABC, that a school with children was hit in Iran, and so this already is signs that Donald Trump is evil and Israel's evil, and it's just virtually every time there is any sort of conflict, particularly if Israel's involved and a hospital or a school or a daycare is hit, it is by the opposition. And I mean, it's just not that mistakes don't happen, but it's just, if you're going to roll the dice 9.8 times out of 10, particularly we saw this in Gaza all the time, it was Hamas that actually did it, and then they blamed the Jews because they knew that would be used as propaganda against the Israelis. And so as soon as I saw the sharing of people who are unhappy by the decision to take this action against Iran, sharing, look, all the school kids already killed. America's awful. This is horrible. This is why we shouldn't do it. I'm like, maybe we should hold off. And according to subsequent reports, it was Hamas it was the Iranian Republic Guard that did it, whether it was intentional or otherwise. But, there's just this almost level of beyond exhaustion. Folks, do you not understand how they play you on this? This willingness to jump as soon as there is a report of those sorts of casualties, to immediately start spreading the propaganda that it was at the hands of Israel or the United States. And again, I'm not saying that never is there or will there or has there been a situation in which the Israelis or the United States did something like that on accident. Joe Biden used a drone right after he pulled us out of Afghanistan that killed an entire suburban full of kids. It happens sometimes, clearly accidental. But we also know a majority of the time it is done by the enemy to their own people, oftentimes I think unintentional as well, and they use that as an opportunity in order to demonize the United States and or Israel. And this willingness of people, because they disagree with a particular action, to knowing just that 90% of the time it's propaganda, that they jump on it and they act as mouthpieces for the terrorist regime in this particular case. It's just, my advice is, when you see something like this on the internet, and it is the sort of thing that generally gets spread about by the enemy, maybe you ought to just hold your horses and wait before you do exactly what it is that the enemy wants you to do, because that's why they put that stuff out there. It's because they see in the world there are people that will act as their allies in spreading that propaganda. And you may tell yourself, well, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying. But you got to be smart. You can't simply, hide or dismiss that assist, that aid and comfort to the enemy as ignorance. Well, I didn't know. I was just, because we do know that this is what they do. So wait until the facts come out as best as possible. That's my recommendation. Kuwait has mistakenly shot down 3 U.S. jets, all crew safely ejected, according to the military. This was an accident. Now, part of the so I know many of you have been watching this unfold, but what has occurred, to the surprise of many, but not to the surprise of others, is Iran has essentially just started just laying into all of these other Middle Eastern countries, and not simply targeting military assets, but hotels and other areas that clearly are not military targets. And you've got two approaches of thought here. One, it is that they figure we're going down, we're going to take everyone with us. I mean, if this is it. This is the final stand, and we're just firing with our eyes closed. We're just gonna get absolutely everyone on the way down. The other belief, which is a more strategic one, is that they were doing this hoping that it would get the world, particularly those Middle Eastern countries, to tell the United States and Israel to stop, because they were coming under attack as a result of us attacking Iran. And so that instead of blaming the Iranians for firing these missiles into their sovereign nations, that they would say, well, this is all the fault of the United States. And, a similar tactic used whenever you would, again, have Hamas target some of their own allies, their own people, and then the international community would come out and say, oh, we got to have a ceasefire. Look at all these hospitals that are getting hit. That playing off of that sort of reaction that the world generally has had, Iran was hoping that the same thing would happen. Like, oh, look at all these other countries. It's going to be a regional conflict. This is going to turn into something that's beyond just Iran, and it's going to become full-blown World War III because all these other countries, and so we got to stop it, got to stop it, got to stop it. Ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire. What happened instead is those countries said, okay, we're not sitting this one out. We're on the side of good old US of A. And Israel, Saudi Arabia leading the charge. I almost feel this sadness because I am able to recognize none of this, and the way it's playing out, is luck. While so often that is the case, this shift in alliance has all been because of Donald Trump's efforts, not just in this administration, but the prior administration. Realigning alliances to the point that we have gone from a world in which if there was any sort of attack against Iran from two countries in particular, the United States and Israel, it would have been a pile-on. It would have been a pile on us. The fact that instead you have a number of these Middle Eastern countries that are coming out, and according to some of the reports, at least 3 now are operationally in plans to assist us militarily. That is only because of Donald Trump. And that sort of realignment is such an inconceivable thing. And the irony of it is, because it's in the context, the recognition of it as this sort of military action, all of that realignment happened without any war. It was for reasons that were so brilliantly strategic, and it's the way Donald Trump operates, and it's why it's the same reason that Donald Trump has been able to craft together all these different peace deals through all these other countries. And that's because instead of just offering, hey, if you're good, we'll give you this, he creates relationships in a world in which it just naturally benefits these countries to behave in a way that is different than they have been behaving. so that it just benefits them directly. The benefit isn't, okay, we're complying with the United States. And that's the way that we've always approached this stuff. I mean, we really saw it under Obama and Biden. Hey, if you're good, we'll give you pallets of money. Hey, if you're good, then we'll let you reconstitute your nuclear ambitions. Hey, if you're good, then we'll do this. We'll do that. And so they were controlling the United States of America while we told ourselves, look at us, we're making peace. And all we became was some sort of vending machine for bad players in the world. Every time they wanted something, they would just start to misbehave, knowing that the United States would come and say, here, we'll give you something if you're good. So misbehaving was what paid off for them. Donald Trump completely turned all of that upside down and instead has been crafting a world which began with the Abraham Accords, in which misbehaving wasn't what gave you the reward and the benefit. Behaving was. And not because the United States was giving it to you, but because of these alliances that Trump would craft, so that it just was the natural state of things. The relationship itself became a direct benefit. And so this realignment that Trump has masterfully crafted has led to the fact that with military action against Iran, countries that once upon a time would have either sat out at the very least. That's what we would have begged for. Just, don't say anything. Or just, maybe you can mouth us a little bit, but if you would not get militarily involved, are now some of these countries militarily involving themselves on our side. We got to take a break. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 55. Tonight, isolated showers throughout the night, otherwise mostly cloudy with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers before noon and then partly sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Wednesday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 70.
All right, well, let's now talk about just some of the reactions across the world, not simply to the launch of the military strikes against Iran, but with the announcement that the supreme leader had been killed. And before we get to some of this audio, it is just such an amazing detachment from the criticisms of Trump versus the actual realities of what's going on in the world. And here, once again, the very people who run around with no dictators, no king signs, another one's gone because of Donald Trump, and they're the first ones bitching about it. Leave the Ayatollah alone, or, leave the supreme leader, and when they're talking about leave Iran alone, they're not talking about the people, because it's been very, very clear this is something that the people want. They've wanted it for some time. This isn't the first time these uprisings have occurred. We saw it during the Obama administration, and he, like Trump, encouraged them, yeah, keep it up, yeah, something good will come your way. But then when they, they don't have a Second Amendment, they don't have any firearms, and then they get mowed down, and then they found that the people like the United States that were saying, hey, we're here for you, keep it up, didn't do anything. This has been ongoing in terms of the desire to be freed from this Islamic terrorist organization. And that's what this is. To be very clear, prior to the Islamists taking over, this was a secular Persian country. You can see videos and photos from the late 70s. And I mean, women in bikinis, and it's just a whole different world. You would not know it wasn't the United States of America. And then Islam took over. And it really changed things. And a lot of people, particularly women and LGBTQ folks, didn't fare so well. And we've been told that Donald Trump loves dictators, that dictators want Donald Trump to be in charge, that there's no greater ally to dictators in this world than Donald Trump. Oh, he cozies up with them. So he takes out the dictator, whether people care for it, thought it was the right thing to do in the interest of the United States or not, but he takes out the dictator of Venezuela, and these left-wing people who run around screaming no kings, yelling no kings, no dictators, are the first ones to defend the dictator. Now we see the dictatorship being toppled in Iran, and these same left-wingers that run around claiming Donald Trump is an ally to dictators are on the side of the dictatorship. Leave them alone. Keep your bombs off Iran. And I want to be clear. There is a difference between people who may not be supportive of this because of their assessment that this is not in the best interest of the United States. This is not America first. I may disagree with that. I do disagree with that in a number of ways. But there are thoughtful people that may not be supportive of this for intellectual reasons. And I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about these left-wing activists that are so-called humanitarians that claim that, all they care about is getting rid of evil dictators. And then when the guy they hate the most actually does what they claim that they support, they are rallying on the side of the dictators. And they may masquerade it as, well, we're just against this way of going about it. Well, then what did you propose? I mean, How do you think? What do you think? Dictators just leave nicely when you're out there demanding to free these people or free those? How do you think that works exactly? One of the I wanted to play. I'm trying to decide if there's any particular order that I should play any of this audio of the coverage, and I don't know that there's a nice and neat, orderly way to do it. So I'm just going to start because of what I've just been talking about with an Iranian-American female activist who's also a Democrat activist on CNN talking about this issue.
I think that it is imperative the Democratic Party wake up and get past their dislike of Donald Trump, the President Trump, and their feelings of international conflicts going on. This is about national security. This is about what is possible in the Middle East. This is about being a good neighbor, good partner to the Gulf states and what their aspirations are. This is about supporting the people of Venezuela. This is about dismembering our relationship with, or not dismembering, but resetting our relationship with China. Right now, 55% of the oil production that Iran produces goes to China despite sanctions. You want to support the people of Ukraine. You want to end that war. You have to, there is no getting around dismembering this Islamic Republic. It is non-negotiable. It is not a want to have. It is a have to have. And it's not just for the Iranian people. I think you have to trust the Iranian people. We know this government better than anyone else. When you dismember and decapitate this regime, you are going to see a change in the Middle East, in Venezuela, in China, in Ukraine. And I think, quite frankly, their ideology has really, it's caused a lot of problems for us worldwide. We need to take it seriously. And I think at this point, we have a tremendous opportunity. This will be like ending the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall. This is a transformational moment for humankind, for security. And as an American, this is in our interest to complete it. So I am a Democrat. I have been a huge Democrat. I am incredibly disappointed with my party. I do not see myself in them in this moment.
She touches on a part of this that isn't getting too terribly discussed for understandable reasons, and she mentions Venezuela and China and Russia. And there is an interconnectivity here, particularly when it comes to so much of the weapons of war and funding. One of the reasons, so in Venezuela, for example, you had the Iranians and the Russians and the China all setting up shop over there, and part of the benefit of those countries, particularly when it came to the invasion of Ukraine, was drone technology, and the Venezuelan government was allowing their land and their people oftentimes to be used in order to essentially put together the drones, and then they would get shipped to Iran, and those drones, guess what, were being used by Russia in Ukraine. A fun fact in all of this is the fact that much of those drones, of course, had been captured, and we utilized that specific drone technology in some of these attacks against Iran. So some of that technology that the Iranians were utilizing and having assembled to some degree in Venezuela and then giving it to the Russians so that they could use in Ukraine, we actually have now used against them. From that one aspect of the relationship between Iran and Russia and supplying them with drones, which have been instrumental in this war in Ukraine, this is at the same time as just the benefits to the Iranian people. This is a huge blow to Russia when it comes to their fight into Ukraine. Now, so once again, by the way, Zelensky's all supportive of this. Guess who isn't? Putin. So all of these left-wingers, all of these Democrats out there that have been running around since, the beginning of time, saying that anyone who isn't for Zelensky is for Putin, and that Zelensky is saving the world, saving democracy for the world, and you can't question anything that Zelensky says or wants, and if you even begin to listen to the perspective of Putin, that means you're a puppet of Putin. Suddenly, all of these left-wingers are against Zelensky and on the side of Putin when it comes to this situation with Iran. Some of this stuff, some people might see as incidental, and some of this stuff may be seen as, okay, yeah, but that doesn't mean that we should have done this. But these are real life implications that are occurring, and it's not by accident. I'm telling you, I believe firmly we will learn that in all likelihood, though it may not have been the driving reason, at least bonus points for what was done in Venezuela was the fact that much of their assistance to Iran was going to be drying up, which certainly doesn't make it more difficult to do what we're doing today, while at the same time it is doing harm to Putin's efforts in Ukraine. You know, all of the Trump being played off like some sort of simpleton and some sort of unintellectual brute that has no idea what he's doing. Yet this guy, it's amazing how when you look back in months or years prior, even a prior administration of his own, that all of these pieces begin to fall into place, and you begin to look at action that occurs here and realize this actually would not be possible, or it wouldn't be nearly as easy if it weren't for these 5 steps backwards that lead all the way to this decision Trump made however far back. It isn't that he just got lucky. It isn't that, he just sort of stumbled into this and boy, the stars sure aligned. He aligned them that way. Play more audio coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. All right, let's just hit some audio reactions of average people, particularly Iranians, when it comes to their reaction, not just to the military action that began in Iran or against Iran, the government, of course, and then the announcement of the supreme leader being killed. And this is there's a number of components to this, and they're not necessarily in vacuums, isolated from one another. Yes, some people will say just because this is being celebrated by millions of oppressed people, that doesn't mean that we should be the ones doing it. Okay, that's fine. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair to dismiss the massive shift towards this humanitarian effort that is underway, and the fact that these people that have been under the Islamic terrorist regime, some of them for their entire lives, are being liberated. I do not think that their reaction to that should be totally ignored and act as if it's somehow irrelevant. So I've just grabbed some different bits of audio here. This is from much of a cell phone video, and this is in Washington D.C. And the picture again, remarkable stuff. You have people that are dancing and celebrating to what is becoming the theme song of this liberation, and that is YMCA, because the Iranians associate that with Donald Trump. They see it as sort of his theme song. And in this visual in Washington, D.C., you see celebration with people that are waving Iranian flags, the pre-Islamic Iranian flag, also Israeli flags, and then the American flag. You wonder if the Village People wrote this song, and even at the height of its popularity, that it would one day be, because, gosh, this song, what year did it come out? Late 70s, early 80s? So I imagine that whenever this song, I don't know when it came out, but I'm just thinking of they had been, guess what, decades in the future, 50, 60 years in the future, this is going to be the theme song of the liberation of the Iranian people from the Islamic regime, and it will be their theme song because it was seen as the theme song of the president of the United States, who was responsible for their liberation. And I imagine they would have been like, now wait, what? How did that happen? Why is that the theme song? Um, this is Iranians in L.A. upon the news of, and I'm not sure if this is just the beginning of the liberation itself or the announcement of the supreme leader being killed. And then over in London, over in Germany, loudspeakers is there, and you have a number of gatherings of Iranians and Israelis, amazingly enough, as they all come together in a number of different countries and sort of have these hubs in which they were receiving information as it was happening. And this is somewhere in Germany where you had a number of Israelis, Germans, Iranians all together, and then this is their reaction to hearing over loudspeakers that the supreme leader was officially confirmed to be killed in the attacks. And I mean, this stuff happening all over the world. And while, again, I do believe that there is a place for intellectual conversation as to whether this is, in the best interest of the United States, but these people on the left specifically that run around presenting themselves as morally superior and caring for the downtrodden, being opposed to dictatorships and no kings, that are out there just unaffected by this, other than it's making them angry, tells us the truth about those people. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. We are slated to have Congressman Burleson on here in just a moment. I do want to go as Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is giving a presser right now, so we're going to go to that live and then just play it by ear to some degree.
Now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq. This is not endless. I was there for both. Our generation knows better, and so does this president. He called the last 20 years of nation-building wars dumb, and he's right. This is the opposite. This operation is a clear, devastating, decisive mission. Destroy the missile threat, destroy the Navy, no nukes. Israel has clear missions as well, for which we are grateful. Capable partners, as we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force. America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives. As the president warned, an effort of this scope will include casualties. War is hell, and always will be. A grateful nation honors the 4 Americans we have lost thus far and those injured. The absolute best of America. May we prosecute the remainder of this operation in a manner that honors them. No apologies, no hesitation, epic fury for them and the thousands of Americans before them. taken too soon by Iranian radicals. Before I turn it over to General Kane for the operational update, let me speak straight to you, the Joint Force, our warriors on the front lines. This is your moment. This is the generational turning point America has waited for since 1979, and since the rudderless wars of hubris, my generation, our generation, endured. Don't listen to the noise. Just stay focused. Our commander-in-chief is steady at the wheel. We face a determined enemy, but you are better. But we must prove it every single day. History doesn't care if we're tired, if we're scared, or if the fight feels big. It demands warriors who rise anyway. Peace through strength, the warrior ethos, lethality, unity of purpose, those are not slogans. They're the beating heart of what it means to wear the uniform, that uniform. You think clearly under fire, you act decisively in chaos, you uphold the Constitution, and you uphold our country without hesitation. We are not defenders anymore. We are warriors, trained to kill the enemy and break their will. History is watching. Be the force you swore an oath to be: focused, disciplined, lethal, and unbreakable. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing. Nobody else's, as it should be. And know this above all, President Trump and I have your back, always. Through fire, through criticism, through fake news, through everything. We unleash you because you are the best, most powerful, most lethal fighting force the world has ever seen. May Almighty God watch over you and his providential arms of protection extend over you. Godspeed, warriors, and keep going. General Kane, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, everyone. The purpose of my portion of the briefing today is to update you and the American people on the actions taken thus far. The briefing will discuss the preparation, the planning, setting the force, the early operations, and how we're assessing the progress thus far. So let's get started. On Saturday, 28 February at 01:15 Eastern Standard Time, 9:45 a.m. local Tehran time, on the orders of the President of the United States, U.S. Central Command, under the command of United States Navy Admiral Brad Cooper, commenced Operation Epic Fury. As I said, I'm going to walk you through the initial phases of the operation. But first, I want to express my deep condolences and the condolences of the Joint Force to the Department of War personnel killed and wounded in actions thus far. As the Secretary said, they're heroes and represent the best of our nation has to offer. They're true examples of what selfless service means. Our deepest and heartfelt condolences are with their families, their friends, and their units. We grieve with you and we will never forget you. Additionally, I stand here before you today grateful for each service member, planner, logistician, operator across our Joint Force, for our Department of War civilians, our intelligence community teammates, our interagency teammates who continue to stand in harm's way alongside us. I am proud of all of you as you take the fight to the enemy, and we are the best in the world at integrating, period. I want to extend my personal gratitude to the dedicated commanders and senior enlisted leaders and the enlisted members of the Joint Force who are fighting this fight across the CENTCOM AOR. In addition to Admiral Cooper and Fleet Master Chief Compton, I want to highlight a few today. U.S. Army Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Pat Frank, who along with his team are fighting the counter-missile and counter-drone fight. United States Navy Central Command Commander Vice Admiral Kurt Renshaw and his team, who are engaged with the Iranian Navy and projecting American naval combat power from the seas. And United States Air Force Central Command Commander Lieutenant General Derek France and his leadership team, who are crushing Iranian targets from the air. I want to highlight the support to the CENTCOM fight from other combatant commands who are directly involved with this effort, to include U.S. Spacecom, U.S. Cybercom, and U.S. EUCOM. I also want to specifically call out United States Transportation Command and U.S. STRATCOM for their contributions to this fight. We cannot project American combat power at the time and place of our choosing without both. And finally, I want to express how deeply thankful I am for the continued service and sacrifice of the entire Joint Force and their families. Their unwavering commitment and dedication are the cornerstones of this effort. So let me start with a few details. First, to be clear, as the Secretary said, this is not a single overnight operation. The military objectives that CENTCOM and the Joint Force have been tasked with will take some time to achieve, and in some cases will be difficult and gritty work. We expect to take additional losses, and as always, we will work to minimize U.S. losses. But as the Secretary said, this is major combat operations. So let me talk about the preparation and the planning. On February 28th, the full strength of America's armed forces came together in a unified purpose against a capable and determined adversary. The United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Space Force, Coast Guard, and our reserve components integrated across our combatant commands and began coordinated operations with the Israeli armed forces of an unprecedented scale. As the Secretary laid out, our military objectives are clear. Our mission is to protect and defend ourselves and, together with our regional partners, prevent Iran from the ability to project power outside of its borders and be ready for follow-on actions as appropriate. Across every domain, land, air, sea, cyber, the U.S. Joint Force delivered synchronized and layered effects designed to disrupt, degrade, deny, and destroy Iran's ability to conduct and sustain combat operations. On the U.S. side, this marked the culmination of months and in some cases years of deliberate planning and refinement against this particular target set. From precision strikes against key military infrastructure to persistent intelligence and targeting integration to the close coordination of the components across vast distances, this operation again demonstrated America's reach, readiness, and professionalism, and that of our joint united force. It was historic not only in the operational scope, but in the level of joint integration displayed across every element of the joint force. And as I said earlier, this work is just beginning and will continue. So now to talk a little bit about setting the force and setting the theater. On the order of the Secretary of War over the last 30 days to reinforce deterrence and provide the President with credible options should action be required, the Joint Force began to systematically reposition assets and personnel across the region. These movements ensured that U.S. forces remained postured, protected, and ready to respond decisively for any emerging threat. This deployment included thousands of service members from all branches, hundreds of advanced fourth and fifth generation fighters, dozens of refueling tankers, the Lincoln and Ford Carrier Strike Group and their embarked air wings, sustained flow of munitions, fuel, supplies, all supported with command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance network. And the flow of forces continues today. In fact, Admiral Cooper will receive additional forces even today. This rapid buildup of forces demonstrated the Joint Forces' ability to adapt and project power at the time and place of our nation's choosing. I want to highlight a couple specific cases for you. The Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group, which many of you know was down in the Western Hemisphere, redeployed across the Atlantic to set the theater. The ship, her crew, their families, and the entire strike group took a deep breath and, as they always do, began planning to conduct combat operations. The integrated Reserve and National Guard forces have continued to demonstrate the value of America's reserve forces, including the Wisconsin Army National Guard operating in Kuwait and Iraq, and Air National Guard units from a variety of states to include Vermont and Virginia. In the case of the Vermont Air National Guard and the 158th Fighter Wing, they were mobilized for Operation Absolute Resolve and then were tasked to take their F-35As across the Atlantic instead of going home to be prepared to support this operation. The same is with our Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve Command tanker and mobility forces, who stepped right out of their civilian jobs to deploy and to protect the region. Lastly, I want to highlight the unsung heroes of warfare, our American logisticians and sustainment force, those who quietly work every day behind the scenes to project and sustain America's combat power. Our leaders from World War II were right when they said professionals do logistics. As regional tensions rose, the Joint Force elevated our force protection measures on the order of the Secretary and repositioned discreetly civilians and non-essential personnel designed to ensure the safety and security of our Joint Force. By the time operations began, only essential forces remained on our bases and in theater, all ready, capable to respond. So now let me move to H hour. At 3:38 p.m. on Friday, February 27th, the United States Central Command, through the Secretary of War, received the final go order from President Trump. The president directed, and I quote, "Operation Epic Fury is approved. No aborts. Good luck," close quote. In the region, every element of the Joint Force made their final preparations. Air defense batteries readied themselves, checking their systems to respond to Iranian attacks. Pilots and crews rehearsed their strike packages for the final time. Air crews began loading their final weapons, and 2 carrier strike groups began to move towards their launching points. Across the globe, our operations centers came alive in Tampa, Florida, here at the Pentagon, and of course forward in the Central Command AOR. As always, operational security was paramount as we sought to maintain and sustain the element of surprise. This operation was highly classified so that at H hour, the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence of action. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. At H hour, the beginning of major combat operations, 01:15 local Eastern Daylight Time, 9:45 local AM Tehran time, as dawn crept up across the Central Command AOR, the skies surged to life. More than 100 aircraft launched from land, sea, fighters, tankers, airborne early warning, electronic attack, bombers from the States, and unmanned platforms, forming a single synchronized wave. This was a daylight strike based on a trigger event conducted by the Israeli Defense Forces, enabled by the U.S. intelligence community. The first shooters at sea were Tomahawks unleashed by the United States Navy, closed in on Iranian naval forces, and began to conduct strikes across the southern flank in Iran. On the ground, forces fired precision standoff weapons, measured, deliberate, precise, and lethal. This was a massive, overwhelming attack across all domains of warfare, striking more than 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours. We are now roughly 57 hours into the operation. In the initial phase, CENTCOM's focus was systematic targeting of Iranian's command and control infrastructure, naval forces, ballistic missile sites, and intelligence infrastructure designed to daze and confuse them. Coordinated space and cyber operations effectively disrupted communications and sensor networks across the area of responsibility, leaving the adversary without the ability to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. The combined impact of these strikes, swift, precise, and overwhelming, has resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran. Over the course of the last 2 days, the Joint Force has launched hundreds of missions from land and sea and delivered tens of thousands of pieces of ordnance. The effort continues to scale. This included American B-2 bombers, which again, similar to Midnight Hammer, flew a 37-hour round-trip sortie from the continental United States, dropping precision, penetrating munitions on Iranian underground facilities across the southern flank and slightly deeper. Additionally, Israel has separately executed hundreds of sorties against hundreds of targets. Beyond Air Force and Navy aircraft strike packages, coordinated salvos of precision standoff weapons from across the region have neutralized hundreds of pre-planned targets. As I mentioned earlier, in support of these kinetic operations, U.S. Cybercom and Spacecom have continuously layered effects to disrupt, disorient, and confuse the enemy. I will note that this operation had several combat firsts, which I'll allow at some point in the future Admiral Cooper to talk about since he owns the AOR. While we've prosecuted a relentless offensive campaign, our defense has been equally important. Across the theater, operations have remained steady and disciplined. Once again, our integrated air and missile defense network is performing exactly as it's intended. U.S. Patriot and THAAD batteries, along with ballistic missile defense-capable Navy destroyers, continue to coordinate and execute intercepts with precision and consistency. I wish that every American could hear the voice communications like I have as these joint operations centers remain calm, focused, and cool while executing under fire over and over again. Collectively, these systems have intercepted hundreds of ballistic missiles targeting U.S. forces, our partners, and regional stability. The threat from one-way attack UAVs has remained persistent. Our systems have proven effective in countering these platforms, engaging targets rapidly. Each intercept represents hundreds of hours of training, readiness, and technology all coming together to work as designed. We will remain vigilant in the counter UAV fight. And the defense of the region is not ours alone. As the threat grew, our partners surged in beside us. Air defense batteries in Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia joined the fight, proof positive that years of training, trust, and hard-earned integration pay off. I am aware of the loss of 3 U.S. Air Force F-15Es overnight in the region. I am grateful for the safety of the crews, and we know that this was not from hostile enemy fire. As this matter's under investigation, I'll not comment further on this. Let me close. Operations will remain active across the theater and across the globe. The U.S. forces are postured not only to maintain pressure, but to respond and adapt as required. Operation Epic Fury stands as a reminder of what the United States military uniquely delivers: the ability to project power on a global scale with speed, surprise, precision, and overwhelming force when and where our nation requires it. What we've demonstrated over the past several days reflects years of investment in readiness, joint integration, and professionalism of the joint force. As major combat operations continue across CENTCOM, we remain engaged globally. America's joint force retains the credibility, capacity, and flexibility to respond to any contingency anywhere in the world at any time. To those who would test our resolve or threaten the United States, our allies, or our interests, understand clearly we can reach you, we can sustain the fight, and we can scale the fight, and we will prevail. To the American people, your joint force remains steady, frosty, calm, and focused. Your service members are trained, disciplined, and determined. We understand the risks of this mission and the weight of the responsibility that we carry. We also recognize that our families also shoulder the burden at home. You are a part of this too. I am proud today, as I am every day, to stand as a member of America's joint force. There is no mission too complex, no distance too great, and no adversary too determined for the men and women who wear our nation's uniform. We mourn our fallen, we honor their families, and we continue our mission with focus, unity, and strength. And now I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we're going to go ahead and we got to get some of our commercials in here, and that was wrapping up there, though he is going to take some questions. General Don Kane, Joint Chiefs Chairman, often times, referred to as Raisin Kane, and before that, Secretary of War Hegseth, making comments just on the operations thus far. So we're going to get some commercials in, and then we may go back, depending on the Q&A. If it's anything extremely relevant, of course, we'll update you on it, but then we'll continue on. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 55. Tonight, isolated showers throughout the night and then mostly cloudy with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers before noon and then partly sunny with a high near 78. And for Wednesday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 70.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. If you've never been through the home selling buying process before, maybe you have just once or used the same person over and over again, you don't realize that not all realtors are the same. For some, it's post some clever videos and then use that to draw you in and to find some houses to show you in and out, and that's it. Or show your home if you're using them to help sell your home. But then you can certainly level up. And when you read the reviews, people have utilized Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, you get so much more than just that. Not just the knowledge, but the relationships. And Emily's big on interview. It's a job. You are hiring someone. And so you should certainly interview more than one person. Of course, she'd like for you to make her one of those people. And I recommend that you definitely do the same. And then choose for yourself whom it is that you think, just based off of their interview and what they bring to the table. And I think you'll find what so many others do, that when it comes to wanting the best, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We're going to go back. There's a Q&A that is going on right now. Pete Hegseth answering questions from the press. And we're, like I said, play it by ear as we have been this morning on that press conference now.
You served in Iraq and know that no American soldiers were killed in Kurdistan. The Kurdish people are very pro-American. Will you continue protect Kurdistan and Peshmerga as loyal ally of the United States? Why I'm asking this question? Because now Kurdistan is under attack by Iranian drones and by proxies in Iraq and on the region.
I think I can speak to allies generally in the region who we've been in constant communication with. We have been standing shoulder to shoulder with them, and we appreciate their capabilities. Absolutely. Yes, right here.
Hi, thank you. Cameron Arkin with the Daily Wire. My question is about some of the regarding threats, if any, regarding this right now. Have there been any concerns about Iranian sleeper cells, and kind of what has the Trump administration been doing to kind of monitor these threats?
Across the interagency, in full coordination. Of course, we're paying attention to any potentialities there. This is a former regime, that seeks to export that ideology, try to sow terror. We're ready for that. We've seen these types of folks before, and the American people can rest assured that we're vigilant on that.
Right. Kind of follow up on that last question. There was just this, what appears to be a terrorist attack in Austin yesterday. How does that change the operation at all? What effect does that have?
It doesn't change the operation at all, and I know the authorities are executing exactly the way they should.
Hegseth, and one for Chairman Kane as well. I understand, to your point here, that you don't want to broadcast everything for our adversaries to hear, but the American people also want to know what they're sending their men and women to war for. Is there a concern of this spiraling into a longer war? And then one for the chairman when you're not.
Did you not hear my remarks? I mean, we're ensuring the mission gets accomplished, but we are very clear-eyed, as the president has been, unlike other presidents, about the foolish policies of the past that recklessly pulled us in to things that were not tethered to actual clear objectives. So we know. We have plans, we have generals, we have chairmen, we have commanders, CENTCOM commanders, Admiral Cooper, who's executing very deliberately to ensure outcomes that I laid out are accomplished. But we would never, in front of a press pool, lay out how long that may take. The mission for our warfighters, which is what matters to us, is very, very clear. And they're executing it right now, violently.
Chairman, quickly, I have one. Chairman, you said this is not a one-night operation. It will take time to achieve the goals. What would be the goal line here for you?
I think the Secretary laid out the military objectives, and that's what we execute against, is the military objectives.
Last one right here.
Thank you, sir. As you said, there are a large amount of U.S. service members that are in harm's way right now. What is your prayer for them?
First of all, my prayer for them is that I do pray for them. My wife prays for them. Our family prays for them. Our cabinet prays for them. None of this is done on a whim. Having been in their boots, having been in their shoes, having been in their flight suits, I know we think about them with every decision that we make and every recommendation that we make to the President of the United States. Those recommendations are made prayerfully. And when I pray every day for them and for this mission, I pray simply for the biblical wisdom to see what is right and the courage to do it. It's going to take courage to follow through on this. There's going to be a lot of noise, and we pray for that, and we hope all of you do as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so there was a press conference prior to each of the two. Before taking the Q&A, Secretary of War Hegseth there, and then General Kane, oftentimes referred to as Raisin Kane, Joint Chiefs Chairman, laying out the vision, the plan. Here's what has happened, and then taking Q&A there. We wanted to get a traffic update here, but one of the questions that he was asked, you probably heard just moments ago, unless you just tuned in, was about this being long and drawn out. He's like, "Did you not just hear me talk about this?" And I gotta say, I just, to a large degree, while some people may see that as off-putting, appreciate the fact he did answer that. These people in the media, it's so clear they don't listen. In their minds, they have a question they are going to ask, and they're not even there oftentimes to really truly learn anything, because they ask questions that are already answered. And I can only imagine the frustration of somebody who's up there trying to give clear, concise information to people who are supposed to be gathering it for the purposes of better understanding what's going on. And you get up there, you lay out things, and then people are asking you questions that you just answered. And it's just like, are you not listening? Why are you even here? Traffic, I'm Nick Reed. I want a greathomeloan.com. All of your home loan needs, refinancing, mortgages, reverse mortgages. You've maybe heard of those. Didn't know if it was legit. Is it scary? Do you risk, if you don't time it out right, you're going to be elderly and kicked out of your home? It is. We've talked with characters about this, and it's completely legit. You don't have to have your home completely paid off either, and you don't run out of time, and so now you're kicked out of your home. They can talk about all those options for you, and whether that is a right option for you, because a lot of times it does make a lot of sense. And those interest rates, again, they're relatively speaking in a good place. Still, the memories of 3%. For those home loans, you can vex us and make us think, no, I want to wait till they get there again. But they're not in a bad place. Plus, you're not tied into that interest rate forever. They lower, you can refinance. All that information and help with the characters and their team at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. I've spoken of this before, but part of the, I believe, self-hindering approach that we take when it comes to evaluating and understanding situations like what we're looking at now with Iran is basing reality off past behavior and assuming that that's just the way that it is. And I mentioned that in the context of, never-ending wars, drawn-out wars. And Pete Hegseth was asked this question during the press conference that we were airing just previously. And, some of the reason this is relevant is because, even Trump supporters like, well, Trump said that we weren't going to get into these never-ending wars again, and that we, and now look what he's doing. What has happened, and I've had to really step back and recognize this, when we think of war, we think of what it is that we are most recently accustomed to, and that defines it in our minds as a constant. So we think about the war in Iraq, and we get in there, and we're there forever, and we're like, why are we even there any longer? And we're like, can't get out. And when it comes to Afghanistan, similar situation. Even though we knew why we went in, and it made sense because the Taliban, but then we're there forever. And then whenever Biden gets in there, and he's just one day like, okay, everyone, we're gone. And so then that ended up with the United States essentially funding an entire terrorist nation and giving them a military because of Joe Biden. And so Vietnam, so you look at what I think people have marinated in as a culture, what war is. And so when Trump has always talked about and campaigned on not getting us into these unnecessary, never-ending wars, we believed that he was just talking about war itself. Because that's what that's our vision of war today. It's not like post-World War II, where, boom, bam, and the parades and the kissing in the streets and the ticker tape and all this sort of stuff. We're like, yay, that was all. That isn't our mindset of war, as horrific to World War II in its entirety, of course, was. We just kind of gotten to the point, like, we don't even understand what the point of it is. Donald Trump is someone in life, in business, in government, doesn't believe in doing something unless there is a clear purpose and there is a likely pathway to getting to and solving that purpose. When Trump was talking about not getting us into forever wars or never-ending wars, he was talking about the way that it is we have been conducting these wars. We do not need to get into, nor should we get into, a situation like Iraq. Or at least the situation as it played out in Afghanistan. Now, should we have, attacked because of the Taliban and 9/11? Perhaps the answer to that, of course, is yes. But subsequent to that, like having a better plan, a better idea of what is it that we are looking to achieve here, as opposed to, well, just getting rid of them. Trump doesn't believe in leaving loose ends, because he knows how much of a mess that can make. People mistakenly, obviously including a lot of Trump supporters, just believe that Trump was talking about war in general, conflict in general. Trump clearly isn't opposed to military conflict and or quote-unquote war in and of itself, just doing it badly and wrongly. And once a person recognizes that, they recognize that this isn't, This isn't a violation of Trump's campaign promises. In fact, one of the it's so funny because you may have seen one of the side-by-side audio video bits that's been circulating in which it's, Joe Biden being asked, what's your advice for Iran? And he's like, no. And then Kamala Harris being asked during the campaign, what do you say to Iran when they say this? Stop. Don't. And then it goes to Trump at a campaign event saying, I'll bomb the blank out of them. I don't care. So, talking about their nuclear ambitions and so forth. So, we've in our minds allowed ourselves to believe that Donald Trump has been against getting involved militarily in anything for any reason whatsoever, even if he's in charge. And he's never, ever, ever talked about any sort of military conflict, particularly with Iran. But none of that's true. They've managed to rewrite history to where even sometimes Trump supporters kind of believe what it is that's been rewritten. Trump has been opposed to, never-ending wars or pointless wars. But that doesn't mean that that isn't a tool that he believes in using, just like a lot of things. He believes in using it correctly. And now, some people may disagree and say, well, no, this isn't. And here's the other thing. We've been here before. We've seen this before. We really haven't. Because while conflicts, particularly in the Middle East, have occurred before, not with Trump calling the shots. And if you haven't noticed, when the United States finds itself in a situation, whether it's a border issue or crime in the cities, and Donald Trump's in charge, the situation is much different. The outcomes are much different. And while that in and of itself does not mean that it's all going to work out wonderfully and that we should have done it, and that, it's all the justification in the world, it is, we are not getting a full, clear evaluation of reality when we don't recognize that when somebody else is in charge and handling things, that the outcome in all likelihood won't be the same. And so simply because Afghanistan, in terms of the way it drug out, went a certain way, and Iraq, because the way it drug out, went a certain way, that means that it's inevitable that it happens that way. There's one thing about Donald Trump he's proven, that while Republican and Democrat leadership in the past have handled things the same way over and over and over and over again, even though they have a different letter next to their name in terms of political party, Donald Trump does not operate that way. And so that's why, whether it is going to turn out wonderful or mixed bag or be some sort of disaster, it is not fair to saddle his decision with the poor execution of previous administrations. There may be plenty of other reasons to be critical of it, but that's not one of them. Right, in the upcoming hour, of course, there's so much more. This is one of those days the show could be 6 hours, and we might get it all in. But nonetheless, also Luke and Heather Davis, Vineyard Market's going to join us for a couple of different reasons. We'll unveil that in the upcoming hour. News in 60 seconds.
Reports the deaths of several Americans in the Iran war.
The president mourned the loss of American service members and said there could be more U.S. casualties in the coming weeks.
Sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case.
In a video statement, he called those killed true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston. FBI Director Kash Patel says he has placed the Bureau's counterterrorism and intelligence teams on high alert as U.S. operations against Iran continue to unfold. A deadly shooting at Austin, Texas by a man wearing pro-Islamic clothing after the attacks on Iran began is raising concerns about possible ties to Muslim extremists here in America. And Hedia Miramati Falco of ResurrectMinistry.com says a major concern is a large number of Christians who have simply checked out of political involvement in their community.
They don't get involved in politics. They're not getting involved in the local community affairs. They don't understand that these large 200, 300-acre mosque complexes are being built in their neighborhoods. And so they are almost defenseless by virtue of their inactions. There's an effort in Kaufman County in Texas to buy close to 4,000 total acres to build what they're calling sustainable cities. They're saying it's not going to be exclusive to Muslims, but who's going to want to live there?
She adds it is important for Americans to understand that aspects like so-called Sharia law are not compatible with Western values, and lawmakers must wake up to continuing encroachments on our society, especially in light of the current Iran conflict. Watching Wall Street, Dow futures down 515 points. The Nasdaq futures are off 332. More on these stories, townhall.com.
If you're like most Americans nearing retirement with money in a 401k or IRA, then listen. The U.S. Supreme Court's recent ruling on President Trump's tariffs has added fresh uncertainty to global trade policy, and investors don't like uncertainty. That ruling helped push gold to another multi-week high as traders sought safety in precious metals. When markets get nervous, precious metals often move higher, and fast. Right now, the gold and silver markets may be offering investors a second chance at history. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 to get your free gold investment kit. You'll also receive a free copy of Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Many Americans are rolling over a portion of their retirement into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty-free with Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000 now. Get into position before the next surge. Results vary. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
The war with Iran has sparked an uptick in world oil prices, an increase that could eventually impact what we pay at the gas pump.
Roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz, so it's no surprise that prices spiked in early trading this morning before easing slightly. For now, there's no formal blockade preventing tankers from passing through the critical choke point just south of Iran, but the country's leadership has repeatedly
Springfield Talk 104.1. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to the show, everyone. Hour number 3. It's been had a good portion of press conference last hour, and that threw things off just a little bit. There's so many things going on, so many important things, and of course with the Iranian situation, there's so much within that. It's one of those days where we don't even come close to having enough time. But of course, we'll have shows obviously throughout the day talking about this. I'm sure, from different perspectives, and there are a lot of those. There's, is this a good thing? Should we be doing it? Is this? We talked about this some last hour. Is this a contradiction of Trump, who says never wars, which he never said never wars, but never ending wars, and then the fact, and haven't had a chance to talk about this too much today, and we may go into it a little bit tomorrow, but the claims that this is an illegal war. It is not illegal. It is not unconstitutional. The way that the folks, particularly Democrats, the media, talk about, well, this is illegal because Congress declares war. Do you know what declare means? Look up the term declare. In fact, if you look in you try to find words synonymous with declare, and what is not in there is permission, authority. A declaration is just that. It is just officially declaring something. And in fact, it initially was written to where Congress would do what the president does, and that is make war. But they deliberately, after debate during the Constitutional Convention, decided they did not want Congress to have the authority to execute war, to actually make war, because they felt it would be too dangerous to give the branch of government that has the power to fund war, to raise money for war, to tax the people to fund war, to also have the authority to execute the war. So they very specifically changed it to where there is a declaration, as opposed to the president that is the one responsible for executing and making war. And now the declaration component, there's actually reasons for that terminology that even Hamilton at the time said was becoming largely irrelevant, and it simply had to do with international relations and making official declarations that could change the relationships with other countries. But it was nothing domestic and nothing in terms of confines on the president. But there's a lot more detail that we can go into on that. But just ultimately, it is not illegal and it is not unconstitutional by any way, shape, or form. We are going to talk coming up with Luke and Heather Davis. We've got a happy hour coming up on Friday, but also, as we began telling you last week, working on something. They're working on something that will be coming up at the end of the month. We want to make sure to get you all in the loop on that here as well. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. Before we do get traffic, I want to get the latest weather from Sarah Myers.
Thank you.
You were at the Fox to see Phantom this weekend?
Yes, it was amazing.
It's fantastic.
Loved it. 10 out of 10.
Had you not seen Phantom before?
No, I missed it when it went through
is that not
Springfield.
an incredible theater?
Oh my gosh, yes, it's beautiful.
The theater itself is worth the visit, even if you're not seeing a performance. Just the lobby, it's absolutely
really
incredible.
Beautiful. I enjoyed it. The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 55. Tonight, isolated showers throughout the night, otherwise mostly cloudy with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers before noon and then partly sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Wednesday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 70.
Luke and Heather Davis, everyone.
Good morning.
Hi, guys.
Hello, friend.
It's so great to see you.
How are you?
Doing great. Doing great. You're, Heather, a little more clear than last time you were here.
Feeling much better. Feeling much better. Thank you.
We were because my wife and I, we came over there to have lunch a couple weeks ago, and you were talking about how, because you were coming down with something, and so you had sort of medicated up before you came in, and like, I don't even hardly remember being there.
I really don't.
Said Luke looked over at me one point like, well, are you going to talk? I was like,
Yeah, I really was. I was a little loopy.
That's usually not an issue, by the way.
Yes.
Getting her to talk. Yes.
Well, that's not a bad thing.
I resemble that remark.
That's not a bad thing at all. Well, let's first talk.
The gift to gab. Right?
Yes, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
No refunds. All right, first, we do have happy hour coming up Friday.
Yeah. It's that time of the month.
Yes, we haven't even talked. Sometimes we're like, oh, hey, we'll do the, we'll tell everyone this or that, but I didn't even ask, so I don't know. Other than we're going to have a
Friday.
good time. It's Friday.
Yep.
Start at
4 to 6.
4 to 6.
Our normal happy hour. But I just didn't know if you all were going to highlight anything or
absolutely.
because I didn't ask. I just didn't.
Right. That's okay.
All right.
Well, we've thought this time we have a donation box in the front of our shop that's going directly to all of our officers. And so Luke and I, we just on the cuff on the way here, we were like, hey, why don't we, if people will donate to the cause, they get a free cocktail on Friday.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, from 4 to 6. So anybody wants to come by and they can donate right there. It all is going directly to the Sheriff's Association. So
And that's awesome. We're hoping that it may be a patio night or afternoon.
I'm hoping.
Because
we did
Sarah was saying like 70 some, it looks like. It'd just be rain, whether that's an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of rain scheduled, but hopefully it'll miss us. Fingers crossed.
I know. I want to get back out on the patio. That was so fun when we got to do that before.
We did an event last week out on the patio.
Oh, you did?
We did.
We did a cigar event outside.
Yeah, I had my ladies' cigar event, and we all went outside, watched sunset. It was glorious. In February. Can you believe it?
Yes. No.
I know. It's Missouri.
Always excited for the happy hour. Excited to meet listeners and they attended too. I think it's doing well.
Yeah, and the first one we did was I think in November, but we were out on the patio, and then we've been inside. We kind of last time moved over to that one area, not really secluded, but just a little bit off. But yeah, whether it's the patio Friday or not, but 4 to 6. Folks come out and then make a donation for the Sheriff's Association and then a free cocktail. Now, on to bigger things. I talked with you all last week, and you already had well underway workings on a real meaningful event towards the end of the month. So let's talk about that. What's the purpose? What's it going to look like?
Well, God is so good. In the last few days, it has exploded into something that is even bigger than. So, okay, you were with us before when we got to do the car show and fundraiser for Officer Mark Preby.
Yes.
And Chaz, my girlfriend next door at B29, and Luke
was
and I,
awesome.
we did that in our parking lot. We had a huge car show, bike show, the whole thing. Everything was 100% donated, and it went to them. So Chaz and I, we got up that morning after everything was released, and we were texting each other before 7 a.m., and we were like, we're doing it again.
This is after the shooting.
Yes, the morning. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. The morning after the shooting, and just said, we've got to get on it. Let's do it again. And just in the last few days, it has mushroomed into something so big. We have over 300 cars committed to come to a car show. We're going to do a car show on Sunday, March 29th. It's from noon to 4, but we were going to be in our parking lot.
Well, that's what
And so I honestly, I was like, Lord, you got to go before us and help us with this. So I called my buddy across the street that has the ballpark there. Used to be the Duck Stadium, Mr. Matt Goforth, and he gave us their 1,400 parking lot to do an event. So I'm so excited. I haven't even got to tell the sheriff yet that we're moving across the street. So if he's listening, he's finding out about it at the same time as everybody else. This literally has all just developed over the weekend. But we have over 300 cars committed, right around 200 bikes so far. It's just a lot figuring out logistics to move across the street. but it's all coming together so quickly. But the Preeby Foundation, Mark and Heather Preeby, they have jumped in. They are calling the car show Roll Call of the Fallen. And it's wicked cool. It's on their site. It'll be on ours here. They literally just sent it, so I'll get it on ours and I'll send that over to you, Miss Sarah, and we can get that up. Everything so far is 100% donated, so every single penny goes to all 4 officers and their families. They all have different needs.
Sure.
We've got 2 that are going to need long-term care, and not to overshadow that 2 gave their lives, but we've got 2 that have really legitimate issues that we need to make sure they're taken care of, and their families, because they're hurting too. So it's pretty exciting. I got a call from Tim Perryman over the weekend. You remember Tim?
Oh yeah,
I know, like blast from the past.
He messages once in a while.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Just that this is how God works.
I forgot that you guys knew him, or I don't know if did I know that?
For like forever ago. Didn't
he used to have Blue Dog? Remember?
Yeah, Blue Dog Graphics in Willard. Yeah. He did our shirts for the longest time.
Yeah, for sure. So he messaged me over the weekend, and he is in a, I guess it'd be, what do you call it, a cause or a foundation. It's called Steaks for Sheepdogs, and it is a big mobile catering, like smoking business. They smoke tons of meat, and they go to sheriff stations and fire departments, and they travel all over, and they do this. Everything's 100.
No idea.
I didn't either.
I didn't know what he was doing, to be honest with you.
Everything's 100% donated to them, and they go and they cook for all of our first responders. And so they called and they said, we are in. And then I had to call him and say, we've outgrown our parking lot. We're going to have probably 1,000, 1,500 people come to this. And he goes, Heather, we got it. I'll call in the cavalry, and they're coming in from all over, out of state. And they're just going to have a huge, I guess, like big old line of smokers and all of that to make sure that everybody's fed. Outdoor Homes coming with the Eggulants, and they're gonna cook for us as well.
They're not too far down the.
Right, they're just in Nixa, so they're coming over. There's a lot going on.
Now, I'm just gonna acknowledge my ignorance here. So, Steaks for is Sheepdog a law enforcement reference, or what is that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I really don't. I haven't even had a chance to really research what they're doing.
I'm sure Tim's listening. Tim, text me.
Tell us what in the heck
the
you
Sheepdog party.
Right.
Well, I know it'll be done right, or is done right if he's doing it.
Yeah, they've got he sent pictures of the equipment. It's going to be pretty impressive.
And companies like Tyson and Reesers and all of these different companies all donate straight to them so they can feed our best.
I Saturday emceed the Christian County Lincoln Days, and of course, there was discussion of this. And then one of the speakers was Shiloh Harris, who is known by a lot of folks, and he's written books, and he travels around the country, and he, after 9/11, signed up and in Iraq, IED, and was in a coma for a couple months. He 80+ surgeries, just a funny guy. I mean, in fact, because of just the massive damage that he took, his ears are artificial, but he can change them out. So he had Spock ears on at the event.
It's fun. I'm glad that we can laugh about it.
I know.
Yeah,
and he was like, listen, when he was getting ready to speak, he's like, I'm telling you, I got a bit of a sense of humor, and I'm gonna say a lot of things that some of you may not think are funny, but it's funny, And I mean, he was great, but talked about how when these horrible things happen, whether it be to him or we saw last week with law enforcement, that, I mean, if you want to call it an upside, but part of what comes along with that is you do get to see all the good, and how, the evil of one person, and we really do. Well, we get so much focus on that, but sometimes because of that focus, we don't see all the love that comes up, that emerges, and it's, I mean, this sort of thing, talking about people that they don't even know how they can help, they just want to help,
Right.
and I think that is a valuable thing to take away from these moments.
Right.
Yeah, I can't begin to tell you the amount of outreach and the amount of outpouring of support and help, financially, physically, whatever. People just wanting to help and get involved, all around the community, the county. I mean, this hit close to home. This is one of the deals that we're not going. This isn't going away anytime soon, especially with those families affected, and that's what we really wanted to hone in on. So. Quite the deal.
Luke and I just stopped and prayed as soon as that very first day after the shooting, and we don't have a lot to give financially, but we prayed about it and talked about it, and we put in $1,000 into the fund. And I talked to Chaz and her husband Matt next door at B29. She goes, well, I'm going to do that. And I'm like, let's put a small business challenge out there. Yeah. If you can donate directly to the Sheriff's Association. It's on our Facebook. It's on the Sheriff's Department Facebook. There's a lot of scam and a lot of fraud out there, so it can go straight to them. But we have had so many people say, hey, they text us. They were like, we didn't want it out there on Facebook that we did this, but, we don't need the praise. We just, I want you to know we matched it. And I've had just dozens of people call or text saying they've been doing it. And it's just amazing that fast. So, we needed to get funds immediately to some of those families. I mean, some of them needed diapers. So, I mean, it's real life stuff, It's been absolutely amazing.
We're talking to Luke and Heather Davis, Vineyard Market. And you mentioned Chaz, for people that don't know. Her place is B29's, which is on the opposite end of the building there. Right. And a great place to go also. I mean, just
great
fantastic.
Hamburgers.
Yeah, it's a great lot of stuff over there. Yeah. And so the challenge, is that still open?
Yes,
so explain
please.
that if there's anybody, business or otherwise, that wants to help out.
Okay, so we did a $1,000 small business challenge, and if it affected 4 counties, and there's a lot of businesses. I think it was almost 13 cities that were affected. So between, my goal was 100 businesses to donate $1,000 and get money directly to those officers and their families, and I think we're going to meet it. I really do.
Great.
So if anybody wants to do that on our Facebook page, there is a Venmo. On the Vineyard Market, there's a Venmo QR code that takes you straight to the Sheriff's Department Venmo. If you want to drop checks and cash off at the shop, we have locked donation boxes, and we have an armed sheriff come take it all from us. We are not keeping it in the building overnight in case anybody's got any crazy ideas. But we've been trying not to bombard the Sheriff's Department. Their plate is full.
Sure.
So if you can take it directly to the Sheriff's Department, but if you want to drop it off with us, they come pick it up every day.
And so people know you all are working directly with them. You're coordinating with them. And I just mention that because a lot of times people, because they do want to help, they'll just sort of start their own thing and maybe not necessarily have those communications and connections. And oftentimes people feel more secure donating to someone if they know that, okay, well, they're in talks here, so these are things that are going to be helpful.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, and they can write the checks directly to the Sheriff's Department, and Sheriff Cole committed to making sure that all of those funds are 100% given to those 4 families.
Now, if people are listening and you talked about the event and they're like, hey, I have something I think would be awesome to donate for an auction or whatever. What sort of things would be meaningful donations aside from cash?
Yes. So we are going to do a silent auction that day. And we've had so many businesses already call and pledge donation items for it. Randy Mitchum called yesterday, and they are donating a beautiful piece that's going to go in. So
they're good people.
They're amazing people, and they're no exception. This community is just crazy cool on how people's hearts are and what they're willing to do. So if they are welcome to call me directly at the shop. It's 417-882-0399, or they can come by, and we are collecting all those donations. I'd love when you do that, please bring me your business card, because I want to give you props for being so good and so generous to help. So and we will put all those out day of. Luke's working on a silent auction site. This is going to be a hair pull. Yes, you are. So I want to get some of that stuff up in case they can't attend that day. They can still jump in and contribute and help. So pretty amazing. It's Sunday, March 29th, noon to 4. If you want to bring your car out, you can bring your car out or your motorcycle, come represent. We are going to open the doors early that day, and all the cars have to be in by 11 o'clock and parked, so because we're going to have so many people walking around.
Oh, and before I let you go, for those that were unable, if you could just briefly, because we were talking about a bit off air, the events honoring the deaths that took place. I know you all were there to observe that, and just what that was like.
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead.
Emotional, awe-inspiring. Luke and I were going to go, we were going to go represent Fremont because he's the mayor of Fremont and go to the service. But we just felt like the Lord called us to be outside on the street and rally people to get out and line the streets. And we worked on that all day and got the word out. And you guys helped so much with that. Thank you. The streets were absolutely lined. All the utility companies came out and put their flags over the street. It was incredible. So beautiful sunny day all day long. Couldn't have had a better weather day. The patio was full all day long, and people just watched the people come to line up on the street. So right out in front of our shop, we're right across from Lambert's, so we were right there on the corner. The service was at James River Church yesterday. As soon as Captain Dietz texted me and said, we're getting ready to leave, and it started raining, and the streets were lined with our citizens, and they stood there in the rain with their hands on their heart. And we watched over 800 lighted emergency vehicles, police officers, ambulances, fire trucks from all over the country. 4 or 5 states easily.
We saw Arkansas.
Yeah, just crazy. There was someone from New York. It was just nuts. So we sat. It was well over an hour of sitting there watching all these cars, and it was getting cold and wet, and it finished up, and one of our escort officers got on his escort motorcycle, lighted motorcycle, and he took off, and I'm telling you, it was a wicked BMW, and he brapped that thing down the street to catch up, and that motor made us all turn, and when we turned, the sun came out over the overpass, and it immediately stopped, and that's when everyone saw the rainbows. And so we got to hear a sermon yesterday from Captain Mark Dietz and Captain LaRue of Christian County, and they go to River Bluff Church just right here in our community, and they spoke from the heart about what happened that day at the shooting, and they spoke about the processional and how the double rainbow came out, and I highly recommend anybody listen to that sermon. It's on River Bluff site. It was incredible, and you got to hear firsthand what it was. But the double rainbow, at the end of the double rainbow, it was on both officers' cars at the memorial at the square downtown in Ozark. So
it's just unbelievable. If you haven't seen the picture, you can find it on Facebook.
It's incredible.
It's unbelievable.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming in and just everything that you do, and I mean everybody. I know like I said, with something horrible like this, it happens so much good, and it's this weird thing that more than balances itself out, because the bad thing happens and it makes you think, everything's so bad in the world, but then you're like, oh no, and then you almost get a better feeling about the good than you had before, because you see it, and you
it's true.
And then we interact with each other, which increasingly happens less and less, and so there's so much good that comes out of it. And we'll make sure, if people forget how it is to participate in anything, or that they get with us, then we'll make sure to pass them along to you. And then, of course, again, our happy hour Friday, 4 to 6 at Vineyard Market, and then anyone that makes a donation that goes to the fund will get a free cocktail to start off the evening, which is awesome. Yeah,
Yep.
totally awesome.
Something that's been really neat, our officers, we're trying to feed them. So Chaz started a program. People could come in and buy gift cards and just have them sitting there. So when officers come in or first responders, we can feed them. And we're going to match that. So anybody that wants to come in and buy gift cards, we want to make sure we feed our officers. We've had them with the outpour with 800 cars. We had them from everywhere. So
Yeah.
everyone was jumping up and picking up tickets
That's great.
for all of our officers. So I really want to do that to help with Chaz. So
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys again. Love
Appreciate
you both. Luke, Heather Davis, Vineyard
Love
Market,
you.
and see you
Thank
for
you.
Happy Hour Friday.
See you Friday.
happy hour.
Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly cloudy skies with a high near 55. Tonight, isolated showers throughout the night and then mostly cloudy with a low around 47. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers before noon and then partly sunny with a high near 78. And for Wednesday, showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 70. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, I spoke with Josh on Friday, and his big message was to make sure that you are prepared for severe weather. Obviously, we've got some severe weather moving in this week, and the National Weather Service was reporting that between March 4th through the 12th, we could see rain almost every single day. Now, if you experience any storm damage, yellowing on your ceiling, leaks, drips, hail damage, make sure that you have a trusted professional on your side. Don't go with some random door knocker because they won't have your best interest in mind. Make sure that you reach out to the Pyramid Roofing team. They offer free roof inspections, they don't use scare tactics, and they will work with you through that insurance process without making you sign anything. So over the next couple of days, if you experience roof damage, make sure to reach out to Josh. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
There's just a couple of additional areas of this war, conflict, whatever you want to call it, with Iran that I want to hit. And the thing about this particular subject matter, there's so many different pieces in the pie, if you will. And one of them, which I'll probably talk about more in depth tomorrow, is this claim that this is an illegal war that is just not true. It isn't. And it's not unconstitutional. This is exactly, we know this because of the debates during the Constitutional Convention. They had these discussions, and it was eventually voted on and determined that the founders believed it would be too dangerous to have the entity in government, the branch of government that raises taxes and funds war, be the same branch that also gives permission and execute war. That would be dangerous. In fact, the Anti-Federalists, they didn't want anyone on a federal level to have anything to do with war. Their proposal was that the states individually would have to decide whether we would go to war. But the Federalists noted that that would just be the impossibility, especially if we got attacked or if there was an imminent threat. It would take away any ability to fight back immediately. And so then the Federalist won the day on that argument that it had to be something that was covered on the national level, that the decision had to be made there. There were a lot of really interesting discussions about, okay, well, if Congress does have the authority, some argued it should be the Senate, because the Senate is actually a more even representation of the states, in the sense that every state has 2 senators, and that senators were to be more involved in federal affairs. But ultimately, what was determined was that you have to you have to have essentially 2 separate keys to launch to have the war, one for funding and one to make the war, to make it happen. They can't be the same entity. And so the original writing in the Constitution that said Congress has the authority to make war, they changed that to declare, leaving the making of war to the presidency, the president as the commander-in-chief to execute these things. And then the War Powers Act, which would come in the 70s, was in response to that. It actually ran counter to what the founders wanted and began to put some form of restrictions on the presidency, saying, okay, recognizing that the president does have this authority, if you're going to do this, we want you to check in with us, and there are certain benchmarks on that. So the argument that it is unconstitutional is 100% untrue. I don't care who's saying it. I don't care if it's a somebody that's an elected official. There are a lot of elected officials that I generally recognize as knowing what they're talking about who are wrong on this. I just go back to the founders and what they wrote and then what they put in the Constitution and why. In fact, it's as simple as I pulled up. Gee, what's the definition of declare? To make known formally. To make clear. To make evident. To state emphatically. In terms of synonyms, declare, announce, proclaim. It's all about letting people know, not giving permission, not authorizing. It is about putting on notice. And there are reasons for that that have nothing to do with the authority of the president to actually execute the war. So it is actually very, very black and white. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to support it. Just because you don't, if you disagree with it, there's this default we tend to have, particularly when it comes to this sort of action, that if somebody disagrees with it, they feel as if in order to justify their disagreement, they have to be able to show that it's illegal or unconstitutional. That's not true. Just because something is constitutional doesn't mean it's a good idea. That's a fair argument to have. And I think often it's not always black and white, whether it's a good idea. But I've stood back and you're hearing this phrasing that Trump isn't starting a war. This is a war that has been ongoing for a very long time. And I've evaluated this. I've thought about it. I'm just going to tell you my line of thinking on it. The first thing is that is an echo of post 9/11. After 9/11 occurred, and we have to have these 9/11 committees. How did we let this happen? What could we have done differently? One of the bipartisan recognitions that came out of that was that there was a war against us. We just weren't acknowledging it. We weren't understanding it. It was very clear, in fact. It wasn't hidden. These people made it very clear that one way or another they wanted to take down the United States of America. In fact, 1993, they attempted to take down the World Trade Centers. And one of the individuals that was involved in the planning of that remarked as he was being, I think, flown from one jurisdiction to another, that when it came, they flew to where the Twin Towers could be seen because, that plan, for those that aren't familiar, it was to put these moving vehicles in the parking garage with explosives, believing that if they blew up the foundation that they would topple, and that, of course, did not work. And one of the masterminds behind it noted to law enforcement while flying past in a helicopter, we are going to take those. This isn't done. Those will come down. So there was a war against us. We just, didn't take it seriously, didn't want to take it seriously, didn't want to take the steps to prevent what would eventually be 9/11 from happening. And so when I hear people note that this isn't the start of a war, this is an attempt to stop a war that has been ongoing against us for some time, and I look at 9/11 and think, well, there's some truth to that. And Trump notes that the Iranians have been responsible for over 1,000 deaths, American deaths, some of which were in Iraq. We can go back to the 80s. They are responsible for the attempted assassination of an Iranian-American journalist here in the United States. Do you know right now, in fact, last week, there's a story in the New York Post. This is from last week, all right, before the strikes were launched. Alleged terrorist explaining smoked out plot to kill Trump by placing vape on napkin. How will it die? Question mark. There's an ongoing trial of a 47-year-old Pakistani who is commissioned by the Iranians to assassinate Trump. He's on trial for it as we speak. And I think it's fair to say that we have been lulled into accepting the fact that the Iranians, maybe not all in one 9/11 hit, but for decades now have just kind of pick us off here, pick us off there, kill some Americans here, openly acknowledge that they're trying to, assassinate our president of the United States, sending people over to try to kill Iranians on U.S. soil. And I don't know that necessarily is a positive reaction from the United States that we've had all this time, that we just kind of ignored those American deaths. Like, oh, well, that just happens. Should that happen? I'm not real comfortable with the idea that we have been lulled into just accepting that's life, that's the Iranians, that's just what we let them do to us. That doesn't mean, that by default the approach is the appropriate one. That's not the argument. But is the way that we've been dealing with the Iranians the proper way? Which essentially, you think about what have they been the recipient of in exchange for killing off Americans left and right, even, on our own soil attempting to, including our own president. It's to give them cash, pallets of cash, billions of dollars. The Biden administration lifting sanctions, taking a government that was on economic life support and injecting into them a lifeline. We forget that it was during the Obama administration they actually captured in international waters U.S. troops, paraded them on camera, in violation of, all of the international laws. And then John Kerry, as Secretary of State, thanked them for the way that they handled kidnapping our U.S. troops. And we're just like, we really as Americans got to this point where we're okay being treated like this by Iran? The mindset that, well, they didn't do anything to us is kind of a horrible disservice to the Americans who have lost their lives because of this deliberate, open, and braggadocious ongoing effort to kill off Americans. And so, again, that doesn't necessarily translate to that means that this is the proper response. But I think it's fair to argue the way that we have been responding for administration after administration really wasn't proper either. So when people note that this isn't the starting of any war, this is finally acknowledging that it's been underway, and much like what would eventually become 9/11, the Iranians haven't hid the fact. I mean, their whole tourism, saying is death to America, just like Bin Laden. But we just kind of thought it was easier to pretend, oh, that's just who they are, that's what they say. Do we know that there would be a 9/11 style attack on the United States by the Iranians who say death to America? Don't know. But they certainly haven't been peaceful towards us. So I don't think it's rhetoric to note that, no, there is a war that has been going on. We just, much like pre-9/11, kind of decided to pretend it wasn't. Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman. Mechanical heating and air. We're kind of in that weird in-between weather where we need the heat on at night and we're kind of turning it off throughout the day. If you haven't tested your AC yet, now is the time to do it, and it's also the time to schedule your annual maintenance. Now, we were talking about this on Friday. Did you schedule your annual maintenance yet, Nick?
I went to their site and I did put in what I need. I went through and filled out that form, and so
There you
that
go.
I think it was on Saturday actually. So they'll be getting back with me.
Very good.
That's what it says on the site anyhow.
Good job. I'm proud of you.
I know. I'm proud of me.
Well, with that annual maintenance, they can do everything from inspect your thermostats, they can calibrate your systems, check your refrigerant, check electrical connections, and just so much more. If you haven't scheduled your annual maintenance, make sure that you reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Now there's some, and Thomas Massey's one of the Thomas Massey. I tell you, so he put out the following PSA: bombing a country on the other side of the globe won't make the Epstein files go away any more than the Dow going above 500 or 50,000. Well, listen, there are a lot of intellectual, honest, ethical reasons to discuss whether this is the right thing to do or the right, but. And there's a lot of, I think, cover up with Epstein. Not every single thing that happens, though, is an effort to cover up the Epstein. I swear, with some of these people, if Christ returned, the second coming, they would say, well, this is all about covering up that not everything is about the Epstein